research method. I'm going to basically just talk about basic research methods and then get into the tool to really help folks do things like conduct their analyses or write their methodology. So, okay, and as I said, Melissa, Samantha, and Ashley are here. Ashley is really your gal for faculty. Samantha, for any student or student projects, we can get you on the books. And Melissa covers anything else and everything else. I think if you want to ask questions, you want to be in the Q&A portion of it. And I want this to be informative. So you can stop at any point. Melissa will interrupt me, put it into the Q&A. And really, this is for you. So we have this down, but it's you that what are your specific questions? Where are you getting stuck? Where did you scratch your head? Where have been the barriers for you? So I really want to invite those kinds of feedback from you. So we'll get through this. With any kind of data analysis, you have to understand levels of measurement. We'll talk about Likert type items. There's a little bit of confusion about those, if they're scale or ordinal. How do I select the test? How do I arrange my data? How do I create an account? Look at the chat for the link there. There's a data cleaning wizard. That's from feedback from guys and gals like you who said, Jim, great tool, but what do you do to help out with data cleaning? And I said, smart comment. So we now have a data cleaning wizard that can really take data from Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey and help you manage that, or get it cleaned up so it's ready to be performed. Significance, have these conversations a lot. We talk about statistical significance, but I just want to highlight that particularly for small samples, that clinical significance, that is to say, effect sizes, are really, really important. We'll go over some tests. We'll talk about the AI summary, which is now AI Insights or Insights, how to download stuff and Q&A. And I'm going to look to accomplish this in the hour. So let's just see how this goes and roll right through. Levels of measurement, basically three things. Nominal, just names. It's Latin for name only. It's like blocks. You got a green block and a blue block and a red block. There's no order to these things. They're just labels of things, different color blocks. Ordinal, just labels plus an order. It's like a small block, medium block, and a large block. That's ordinal. So data is ordered, but not necessarily the same size differences in my block example. Or small, medium, extra large. Yes, there's an order, but they're not equal ounces, perhaps, of a drink. Okay. Scale, it's just numbers. There's lots of synonyms for this. There's ratio, there's interval, there's scale, there's continuous. Okay. All of these things I'm using interchangeably because it makes no darn bit of difference when it comes to conducting analyses. Some analyses only allow nominal. Some analyses only allow scale. So that's why it's really important to know what level of measurement you have or need. One other thing about level of measurement, I can have a variable and have them bucketed into all of these, okay? So I can have age from 18 to 88, right? 18, 19, all these different scale level. I can also order them into whatever, adolescent, adult, old age, right? I can ordinal. I can also be dichotomize them. 50, old, young, or some darn thing like that. So you have a lot of choices about how to label these things, but you'll want to know that that Venn diagram is nominal. That bar chart looks like ordinal, and scale is like a ruler. Okay, so levels of measurement important. I think if you emailed Ashley, we can probably get you a little PDF on that. Okay, that would be great. There's a question that often arises whether or not a Likert type item, particularly these strongly disagree to strongly agree, if they is that a scale or ordinal. Okay, and the basic rule of thumb that you can look at a quick white page on that under this website is that if it's a 3 or 4 point scale, one item, 3 or 4 point scale, keep it as ordinal. 5 or 7 point scale, keep it as scale or treat it as scale. Having said that, once you start adding these things together, you're in scale land. For example, when you were a kid, you took a 100-question test. Each test you got correct or incorrect. That's a nominal level variable, correct or incorrect, okay? Nominal. But when I add them up, right, I had 88 corrects. I'm definitely in scale land. So this is only relevant when you have one item that we're dealing with. But once you start adding these things, okay, you're in scale land. Test selection. The biggest problem people have, two big problems. One problem is data analysis plans, or what test should I use? Okay, and the other one is actually conducting things. We've sought to simplify it, and I want to speak to the first thing first, which is what test do I use? What is the data analysis plan? First of all, the data analysis plan goes in your methodology, okay? After you talk about study aims and participants and instruments and procedure, the data analysis plan is what test am I going to use? It's the roadmap for how you're going to conduct your chapter 4, your results chapter, okay? It's also going to be used in your IRB application. They're going to want to know what your plan is, okay? What test are you going to use, right? And I like to think about, for all the students out there, okay, that I like to tell you that it's really, I'll just say, they're the blueprints of your results chapter. And you want those blueprints in your methodology. So if they want to change the blueprints, you want to do that in the methodology in your proposal, okay? You do not want to get to your results chapter with a fuzzy data plan or no data plan, worse yet, no data plan, and you go and conduct the analyses and they say, you know, we had something else in mind, okay? You want to know that. You want to do the results chapter one time only, okay? So the way to accomplish that is to have a clean data analysis plan that people are nodding like this, okay? Yes, we agree, paired t-test and assumption of normality. We agree, chi-square test, and so forth. You want to have that plan laid out. Because when people start doing it 2 and 3 times, it's annoying, it's time consuming, and it costs you your life, okay? You're going to sit for 2 weeks or a month. Okay, you don't have to do that. Have a clean plan. Have a clean blueprint before you sit there with your data and a bunch of wood and saws and hammers. You don't know what the heck you're going to do. Okay, all right. You don't want to start building a house without having a plan. Before you cut the first piece of lumber, what is the plan? Okay, so how do we get to the plan? We get to the plan by getting 2 pieces of information. One, what is the study aims language? Is A correlated to B? Is falls related to patient satisfaction? Well, not patient satisfaction. Falls related to pain or whatever. Okay, are things related to each other? Are there differences on pain ratings by gender? Okay, does gender predict this? Okay, this is all statistical language. Differences, relationships, correlations, prediction. That language needs to be in there. And that language is foreshadowing the type of analysis, which I'll get to. I believe it's in here. The other piece is that level of measurement that you need, okay? I want to predict a live or die, a binary nominal outcome variable. I'm doing a binary logistic regression. If I'm predicting pain ratings from 1 to 10, okay, that's a scale level. So that level, that's a linear regression. So the levels of measurement makes a difference in the test that you're using. You have to have both of those there. Okay. There are PICO questions. Overall, I like PICO questions. PICO question is a very large, encompassing thing, okay? All right. Who are the patients? What intervention are you going to use? Who are you comparing that intervention to? It may be pre-post. So you're comparing to no treatment to versus education or treatment or some new protocol. Okay. What's the comparison? What's the outcome? What's the dependent variable? The outcome variable dependent upon your participants, typically, and over what time period. I'm going to do pre-post over 4 weeks. What am I doing here? I'm going to give them education, take a test on some instrument, give them knowledge, and then assess their knowledge again. Okay. So that's the PICO. At the end of the day, though, when it comes to the statistical test and the data analysis plan, I call it PICO light. You want to get to the heart of what you're doing, okay? Which is typically, again, pre-post tests, and you're saying, does knowledge on this scale differ by time? That's the question. You don't necessarily have to have all this population in there and blah blah blah. Okay. To select the test, you want to get to the heart of it. What's the outcome variable? By what? By some predictors, by some time, by some group, male or female, or whatever. Okay. So yes, they're gonna make you do the PICO. Okay. And I think it's good to get a comprehensive view of what's happening. But in terms of getting to the actual test, try to boil things down here, all right, to the heart of it. Outcome variable by what independent variable? Okay. Common languages for statistical tests. Are there differences on A by B? Does A relate to B? Does A predict B or impact B? Okay. Those are I call that statistical language. I'm not sure it's official, but I call it statistical language because I've seen it enough over the decades that it implies things to people. Okay. It implies things to your committee, it implies things to journal, okay, reviewers. So think about language like differences relating, predicting. 80% of DNP projects are paired t-tests. And there's nothing wrong with a paired t-test, okay? So particularly because they're often small samples, often as short, you had one class in it and so forth. So here for the paired t-test, let's just hold off on this follow-up for a minute, okay? I have different participants. Again, often they're very small. 5, 10, 20, 40, something of this sort, okay? You have 40 IDs there. And you have a pre-test score and a post-test score. That's how the data should look, okay? You should have the same participant, ID 1, their data needs to be on the same row, okay? And if they have a follow-up, also on the same row. So whatever that participant is, all of their data needs to be on the same row, including that pre and post test. Sometimes, and that's a paired t-test or a match sample t-test. That's what they call these things. The other thing is they have independent sample t-tests. So let's just again say pre and post. Here, the pre people maybe did not have some knowledge, old, they were using the old knowledge, okay, of fall prevention, okay? And here, a different group of people, different IDs, different people, they have the new protocol, okay, of overseeing patients in whatever, in some ortho unit, okay, who just got knee replacement or whatever, okay, and they're doing some new protocol, okay, or new rounding or something of this sort, okay? All right, so different people. Here we're going to look at these dependent variable, perhaps number of falls per 1,000, number of falls per stays, or whatever that is. You have to define that pretty closely, okay? Falls by what? falls per day, falls per unit, falls per month, falls per thousand. How is that being measured? That's very important. By two different groups. Some pre that had the old intervention and some post, other folks that had some particular protocol and training. Data cleaning wizard, I'll get there. Clinical significance, most of our game in scholarly projects, even in journal articles, most of the game is around statistical significance, okay? Is the p-value 0.05 or less? And that's important, okay? It's important for generalizability purposes and so forth, okay? And they want to know that. And you don't see much things published, okay, that are not statistically significant. That's a shame, but that's the way life is, okay? So statistical significance, you're going to have to report that. People care about that. But I want to highlight that there's also clinical significance. And I just got off the phone with a startup. They're doing some, oxygen tests, or I don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're measuring different oxygen levels. If there's no statistical significance, there may be a clinical significance called effect sizes, okay? Effect sizes. And it's a fancy word, partial eta square. But the important part here is that there's another way of measuring importance, okay? And effect size gets to that importance, okay? Maybe there's no statistical significance, but one more patient lives, okay? Okay, that's very important, certainly to that one patient. All right. So, what is the importance of this protocol change or these differences? So, I want to just highlight that. Okay. And they're typically stated in all of these tests, but I think it gets short shrift and is rarely discussed, if ever. But it should be talked about. I'm not going to get into all this clinical. If people want the slide deck or something or different things, we can get them something. Okay. Just to know that there's statistical significance, which is the p-value, and there's clinical significance and effect sizes. That's the important part to walk away with. Well, okay, so here's some examples. Statistically significant, but not clinically. Blood pressure medication reduces systolic blood pressure by this. Significant P, but doesn't reduce cardiovascular events. Okay. You have statistical significance, but not clinically. Okay. Clinically significant, but not statistical. Nursing intervention reduces falls by 30%. Massive. By the way, did you know that I thought this was all handled already, but evidently not. There's something in the order of 700,000 to 1 million falls per year in the United States, 10% of which are significant, serious, okay? That's a big deal. Catheter infections, 450,000, okay? So there's all these kinds of things that are still going on in this day and age, okay? And falls is one of them. So if you can reduce falls by 30%, take it to leadership, okay? Even though it may not be statistically significant given your small sample. This is an example of clinically significant, but not statistically so. And then, of course, there's both, okay? Readmission rates are down and there's significance. Hunky-dory, that's great, all right? So statistical, but not clinical, clinical, but not statistical, or both. Or could be neither. All right, but just to give you a heads up about that. AI summary I'll get to. So we're going to do cleaning wizard. Someone asked about that earlier. And summary, which we now call insights. And now here's our time to log in. So you can go to this, typed it into the URL. Melissa maybe paste it again into the web chat or the Q&A or both or something. So, okay, and Kimberly's asking for a summary of the presentation. Well, you're certainly going to get this recording, so maybe that's the win, right? Okay, everyone's going to get the recording of this. All right. Make sure I'm logged into the right place. Let me just share with you let me just jump to some to some highlight here. Just did a demo recently, and I was looking at this is mock data of hourly rounding and pain ratings and falls, okay? And I basically just did things like, descriptives. By the way, these are really simple to do, right? So let me just maybe jump ahead for a second here. This data, you could do your whole project in 5 minutes. Somebody was asking about advantages to these things. Once your data is in, and we'll talk about getting data in and cleaning. Once your data is in, let's just say I want to conduct descriptive statistics of my data. I'm under analyses, going too quickly here. Analyses, descriptives, put in my variables, click calculate. Voila, okay. APA table, frequency and percent. No more raw. For scale variables, scale, okay, means and standard deviations, you could scroll over, APA table. Let's do the paired t-test, okay? Paired t-test. I want to see, well, I can't do a paired t-test there. I have to do independent sample t-test. Because I don't have my data pre to post lined up like that. Let's see if there's different pain ratings by gender. Notice the icon there. It's nominal. Okay. Notice that in all of these tests, there's a video tutorial, 3-minute tutorial, help you through it. Once you select the test and select the variables, the assumptions are built in, including the interpretation of that assumption. Assumption with an interpretation. And then here, the results are in plain English, okay, that there's a not significant difference, okay? Males had higher pain ratings than females. Not that we needed a test for that, but there we are. Not statistically, okay? Here's the effect size that I was talking about, okay? That's the clinical significance number, okay? And here, just to give you an idea, 0 to 0.3 is like a weak effect. 0.3 to 0.5 is moderate effect. Anything north of 0.5 is a large effect. So that's the very quick conduct analyses. By the way, when I did some of these analyses, and I did things like, correlate these different variables together, hourly rounding, pain, and falls, okay? I did a linear regression where I used a regression model to predict that hourly rounding and pain predict the number of falls, and hourly rounding did here. You can see the results come out very, very quickly, but I wanted to show you that discussion section thing. I think it's such a big deal that under the insights, it will literally summarize your findings, okay? It will interpret that with literature. It will go and seek out literature, some of which you probably have in your lit review, but talks about pain and fall relationship, theoretical implications, practical implications, limitations of the study, future directions, okay? So I will give you 2 caveats that are very important. The one caveat is that you have to, 2 things. One, you have to have very clear variable names. Here, Morse fall scale, and our rest have picked it up that was pain, hourly rounding. It's getting the idea we're talking about nursing. Okay, so the variable names need to be very, very specific. Okay, this goes against decades of my advice, which was to keep them simple. Okay, but for this particular discussion section insights document, you need to have specific names. The other thing that I'm going to mention is that roughly 6 to 15% or so of these are not accurate. So you have to vet these references and the in-text citation that it refers to, okay, and get them out of there or replace them. So I have used this, I have vetted this, and my assessment is this: to write a discussion section draft is probably 20 hours. Cleaning out the references and making sure the variable names are correct, 20 minutes. Okay. So I think the win is here. Does not cost an extra penny. At least at the moment, we're just kind of putting that in there. But I want to make you aware of that really powerful. I mean, the tool is powerful and it's plain English, but that's a very powerful addition to this thing. Okay. I'm going to now step back and I'm going to go back to uploading data and then data cleaning wizard, because that's really important. And then I want to take people's projects if they have them. So to upload, get the mouse working. So to upload data, by the way, for the folks that aren't doing stuff till January, you can play with data over here, okay? You can go by different tests. So if somebody's, well, let me take a step back from that. The decision tree can help you figure out what test to use, okay? Decision tree, I want to predict an outcome, that scale, I'm doing a linear regression. So you can play around with decision trees to get there. For the people that are just starting, you could also go to a data plan, okay, and look at the data plans for different, okay, for different tests. You can go to sample size or power analysis to figure out, for that regression, how many participants do I need? Okay, these things are all downloadable and editable, okay, over here. Okay, you can change the number of predictors and so forth. So just to say that you have a nice built-in set of a priori tools to help figure out what test am I using, what analysis assumptions are there, and what is the sample size of that, okay? That's really important for methodology, for IRB, scholarly projects, journals. Okay. So once you know you're doing a pair t-test, for those that aren't doing, haven't collected data yet, you can practice. Okay, you can go get a example data set of a pair t-test. Okay, you can use time 1 and time 2 as variables. Okay, and practice doing a pair t-test. Look at the assumptions. Start getting your brain and heart around that so you can feel comfortable with that. Okay, so example data sets. You can also upload data sets from different file formats. And in fact, I'm going to exemplify, upload it in an Excel file. And it's the Rosenberg self-esteem scale. Okay. And by the way, so oftentimes, very often I'll say, data looks like this, particularly in Qualtrics, and I think SurveyMonkey too. They have 3 rows of headers, okay? Age, maybe the question number, some of the levels, and so forth. Like or type items in the labels, open-ended, okay? That's how it's got to be. That's how you get it, okay? And maybe some pre-test and post-test in there. We need to convert that, all right? So the data cleaning wizard can help you convert that. So I'm just going to show you rather than tell you, okay? So first thing I do is get rid of those headers. I don't need the questions, I don't need the things, I need the variable names, okay? Variable names and the data, that's it. So if you endorse those 2, we can clean those out and apply changes. So I'm going to delete those. Now I just have the variable name and the data. Great. You can also change the variable name. That would be a good place if you are wanting that that good name, okay, or that descriptive name. This is the time to do that, okay? And you can just click in there and change it, okay? All right. We do have um, some basics. Surprisingly, sometimes things are mislabeled. Disagree's got 3 E's or 2 E's. Male's got a capital M and a small m. They're all the same thing. So we have a way of just kind of identifying where these things are and then looking at the merging before and after to get a clean data set. Hence the data cleaning wizard. We also have an opportunity to get those Likert type labels into numbers so I can average these things. So I happen to have a 5-point agreement scale. It looks like that. I want to turn them into numbers. Okay. So I'm going to check all of these variables, pre and post. I want to change from those labels to those numbers. Next. Then I want to create a composite score. Very common to have a pre-test and post-test. So I could name this pre-test, okay, and endorse my pre-test items. Typically, you're going to sum them, adding them together, or you're going to average them, one of the two. Okay, so here I'll average them. Reverse coding is if they ask the question in the opposite way, you want all high numbers to mean the same thing. So self-esteem scale, I feel my self-esteem, I feel self-efficacious in the morning. 5 high, okay? I feel self-efficacious in the afternoon. Okay, great. High numbers mean I'm high self-esteem, high self-efficacious. The nighttime question, I feel kind of laggy at nighttime and I kind of ruminate, okay, or some damn thing. All right. High numbers is not high self-esteem. So I have to flip that. Okay. Low numbers would be good there. All right. So I have to flip that. That's what reverse coding is. I invite you to just Google it to reverse coded items. And it will tell you in the scoring sheet which items need to be reverse coded. So I'm naming a new variable called pretest. I'm averaging those scores, and I am using these items here. And I'll just do a post test just for the heck of it. Okay, identify the items. You'll notice that new variable was made there. Okay, next, add an ID variable, doesn't hurt. It's just numbers, these folks. And now I basically have, you can change these, but here's the levels of measurement. Now I have a pretty clean data set. I have sex, here's my variables and numbers, and I have my pre and post over here, okay? I would just do 2 other quick things. Age happen to be ordinal, and I'm not dealing with 1, 2, 3, and 4-year-old kids. I'm dealing with age ranges. So one is maybe 20 to 29, okay? 30 to 39, 40 to 49, okay, and 50 plus. All right, so, and I'd put that probably back in the same variable. I'm not going to make a new variable for that. So replace the existing 1, 2, 3, 4 with my levels. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I would do is if you have an open-ended question, we have a cool thing called text classification. And basically you can put those open-ended responses in. And what it's going to give you is bucketed responses. So, I mean, if you have 20, I'd probably just read them and be done with it. But if you had 220, I'd want to have this text classification, which is again grouping, okay, grouping these variables here, okay? And it takes a second. And the insights takes a second too, by the way, but worth it. It does take, I'm not going to, so here we are. So it's taking these open-ended responses and well, let's just do descriptives on it. Let's do descriptives. Let's do descriptives on all of our variables of interest: age, sex, pre-post, and then our leadership. Select the test, descriptives, add the variables, hit calculate. Okay, and here is our bucketed leadership. Okay, so 15% talked about emotional intelligence skills, 20% talked about servant leadership principles, and so forth. Okay, then we have pre-test and post-test. To do that paired t-test, which again, majority of you are going to do, and if not, get with Samantha. I can help you. Go to paired, go to t-test, go to paired, put the variables in, pre-test, post-test. Okay. Select the test, put in pre-test, post-test, hit calculate. So it's going to run that assumption of normality. Well, let's just get to the heart of it. We want to see if that's 16, the mean is 16, is statistically different than the 3. We can eyeball it and say, yeah, it is. But first, there's an assumption with that of normality. That assumption is violated. It's a little bit of a conversation. What do I do if it's violated? Then the results are significant. Okay, that's an APA table. Look at that effect size. Look at that clinical difference. Okay, massive. Again, anything over 0.5 is large. 4.22, off the chart. Okay. All right. And then we can talk about Wilcoxon. When an assumption is violated, what do we do? And the non-parametric test. If you have a stickler committee or a stickler journal for sure. Okay. Journal, be prepared to discuss the Wilcoxon. No doubt about that. Okay. If you have an assumption violated, they're not going to let you get away with that. Okay. You have to run the Wilcoxon. Okay. And I would probably edit that data plan to reflect that. The data plan and your methodology. Okay. And here you can still see that statistically different, significant difference here. So I think I'm going to, and then you can download everything into an editable Word document. And in that Word document, you can see we have our analyses we included, descriptives, our paired t-test, our Wilcoxon, and then APA style references. By the way, those findings are not AI. Okay, that is the exact number. Okay, so there's no hallucinations could be had here. So I just want to be really clear. These are templatized results that to be put into your own voice. Underline that. You definitely have to put this in your own voice. Okay. Happy to help with as well. But so all of that's been published with Turnitin. That right there. Okay, so you have to do that. APA references, and then we also include a glossary of all the terms and symbols that are involved in these tests. So you're not always Googling around. You can say, well, what does the M mean? Well, that's the mean, and that's what it means, okay? And so forth. Okay, I think I'm going to stop here, take questions, open up. Melissa, do you want me to take projects? Do you want me to answer questions?
If anyone has shared their project, could you please raise your hand and then we'll find it and unmute you. In the meantime, if you have questions, please enter them into the Q&A and we can address those as well.
So, okay, and I want to speak to Deborah. So, so thanks for the question. I'd love to hear how others are incorporating this option into their DNP curriculum. So about, Melissa, correct me, somewhere in the 50 to 70 DNP programs have that in their program at a department level. And they typically incorporate it with the course. So great question. So we actually have a healthcare edition of our course. So this is teaching in a very simple fashion, okay? You can select the types of tests or lessons that you'd like them to have. It's competency based, so you get grade C, a grade book, and they'll do an hour on a pair T test, okay? And then they'll practice doing it in the tool. So they typically take it in their stats class or biostats class or things of this sort. They'll take the course and the tool, okay? And Ashley can provide you with pricing and demos and courseware to look at these things. And then for their DNP project, they're using the tool, and it's a small learning curve. I mean, especially if they're taking it. First of all, they're getting their anxiety reduced, right? When you hear statistics, people freak out typically. So once they see it, they don't have to sit with a year of anxiety about, oh, I got to do stats, okay? Okay, I get it. The things are in plain English, okay? All right. We try to make it simple in plain English here. All right. All right. So incorporate it into class, and it's low cost, by the way. I mean, again, you can speak with Ashley about that, Deborah, and Ashley, you got that, and then use it for the project, and saves faculty time too. They're not messing around running SPSS, even though it's free. Okay, they're not wasting their time with formatting, interpretation, and hand holding. This can really get you there. All right. Other questions? Oh, come on, don't be shy.
We had one question earlier about control charts. Can you show those, or do you have a data set to show those?
I do. So while not an expert in control charts, I will, the tool is designed to be simple. So here's a data set, and I'll just run, and thanks, because I haven't talked about charts or plots at all. Then we have 10 typical plots, one of which is the control chart. And if I do an S chart, so there's different ways of having the data be put in. A little description about that and a video. You have not only the X and the time, but you also have different rule sets. Okay. And the cool thing about our control charts, that we have most of them, if not all of them, that we have that plot, but we also have the interpretation of those rules. So for each and every rule, there are no points that fall without, 3 standard deviations from the center line, as you can see, okay, indicating that rule was not violated, and then referencing that rules. So with the conclusions, right, there's no rules were violated and so forth. So you can do that for all of the different types of control charts that are available here. Okay, that interpretation is going to be there. And that's kind of a very unique thing that we should probably be leaning into more for hospitals, but or magnets, Melissa. But that was a great question there. Okay. All right. What other questions we have here?
We have a couple about qualitative analysis.
Okay. So in addition to the quantitative tool here and the courseware for the quantitative, we also have a qualitative tool to help thematize same similar fashion stuff, uses AI, and basically you get your transcripts in. Here's 4 transcripts, and the tool can actually go out and find important excerpts. It combines the similar excerpts to create a code name and code description. Okay, that's pretty cool. So this will save 100 hours of your life. So, and when people come in and they, well, I have 15 interviews at 45 minutes long, this is a great start. It found 24 codes and 64 excerpts. We also do consulting around this, and we can have a conversation about how many codes is right. Okay. You can also go in and thematize these things. So I have all of these codes, but how do they combine to coalesce around a particular theme? Well, I'm not going to like that many themes personally. So I've identified 7 themes. And then you can see the themes here. Okay, theme description and the excerpts that go with it. We also have a process to tie your study aim or research question with those themes. And we also have a set of courses to go with that as well. Again, let me get the courses, sorry. As with the quantitative courses, they're competency-based. Grades go to gradebooks. They go behind your LMS. They're cheap, somewhere in the $8 range on top of the tool, and so forth. And you can just look at these things. For faculty that want them, get with Ashley or flag Ashley, and I'll put up her contact information in a moment. And so we're happy to, again, demos, courseware to review and so forth. For students who want to upskill, you can also purchase these things individually if you'd like. So we call them on-demand courses, and you can go and and buy a particular course. Okay. All right. All right. I should also say that we're coming out with a literature review tool. It'll blow you away. You're going to load up 20, 50, 100, 150 articles. It's going to figure out which ones go together. It's going to generate a synthesis of that. And it's going to do a deep dive description of each one of those. So that's forthcoming, a month or two. So we've been working on that for a while, and just stay tuned for that. If you want a heads up on that, throw that into the chat, and I will make sure that Ashley and Melissa are heads up there. Okay. And let me just put up some information. So if you want a consultation with me, faculty typically free, student is paid, but we're going to help. Student support, Samantha at intellectastatistics.com. Ashley, trials demo courseware, Ashley at intellectus360.com. Melissa for institutional support. Hey, you know what? I'm a provost, okay? Or I want, Jim to present to my faculty or to my students. Melissa can get with that. Our main phone number, and then different websites for our quant, qual, or qual, quant, and other kind of quant website. Okay. All right. All righty. Any other final kind of questions here? I know I talk fast, so I apologize for that. It is recorded, which everyone will get the recording. Please share this with others. We're at this 12 years. People to this day like, we never heard of Intellectus. What does that do? Okay. And some of you may be new to it too. So do share it with your colleagues, with your fellow students, your fellow, faculty, colleagues, and in your social media. Some people are I'm not really social media savvy, sorry to say. So someone has to help me to get on Facebook, but I know some of you are very savvy in some of these groups. Okay. Share that with them. Okay. there's nothing better than a faculty or student sharing, oh, hey, this is a tool that could be helpful to you. Okay, so please do that. That would be wonderful. Can you incorporate the Prisma and evidence table? I'm not quite sure what that is, Linda, so I apologize for that. I am not familiar with those two formats, but I will, and maybe I should, but if anything, we're going to be kind of linking together the quant and qual tool to kind of triangulate those findings. If anything, we're going to be tying the lit review tool references into the quant insight summary. So I think that's kind of where we're kind of headed. Um, um, okay, so it's Melissa. Okay. I'm not sure. Is there any other questions I've not really gotten to?
No, I think a lot of people want to reach out to Ashley, and I'm going to send an email with the recording. Ashley's contact will be in there for faculty. Samantha's will be in there for students, and there'll be other resources and links to our other webinars as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your attention, and I hope this was informative. I hope you walk away with the idea that there is a quantitative tool that can help me and my students streamline some of the processes that are necessary to get to the finish line, and that you can spend your time, quality time, around critical thinking and other kinds of things without having to, Google around for how do I do this thing in SPSS, or wait for your statistician down the hall to help you. Feel free to reach out, to use the QR code. And anyway, I just wish you all a great rest of the week. Happy research. And when the lit review tool comes out, we will share that with everyone. And then there's also, with the video, upcoming videos for quant, qual, and research methods. So with that, I'll say thank you all. Melissa, Ashley, and Samantha, thank you. And thank you everyone for your questions and for your contributions here. So thanks so much. Have a great rest of the week, all.